Yeah, so I was just asking about the secondary and how well you guys have been able to start this camp where you left off with a strong finish last year.
And I feel like we are able to start up, build off of where we left off at from the Super Bowl. But as we had time off, we still need to find that connection again, since we had like a little bit too much time off away from each other. But it's slowly starting to come back between us. So, as we just continue going through training camp, we just got to just keep focused on being on the same page with each other.
Thanks, Bill.
Next, we'll go to JC Allen. If any media have questions, please raise your hand.
Hey, Jamel, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. What about you?
I'm doing great, man. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Just want to ask you, there's a lot of competition, especially with Ross moving over to the safety position for parts of camp. As any of the guys that brought in Antonio Hamilton or, Cameron Kinley, some of these Nate Brooks, have they impressed you, and what have you kind of gathered from them so far?
Every single one of them impressed me because they all have their own game. So it's always good to see like what each person game they bring. So now once you pay attention to like how they play and then what they do, what they can do, what they can't do, you really like start to appreciate the type of player they are.
And you mentioned the communication, trying to get that back. Are there things you guys are doing off the field that are trying to, perfect that and get back to that mid-season form that you guys are in?
After a bad play happened, we normally go on the sideline and discuss it. And then while we walking around the facility, we'll pull the play up and just talk it over. Be like, this what I'm thinking, this what the other guy thinking. So we try to like find that happy medium between us so we can like be on the same page of like when we see certain things.
Next, we'll go to Rick Stroud.
Jamel, you made one of the biggest plays of the year, with the pick six against Green Bay. It absolutely turned that game around. But as a defense, when did you feel like your secondary really started to hum? Was it later in the year? And what changed for you guys on the back end, do you think?
Honestly, I think a lot of stuff started clicking for us after the bye week.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what happened. It just happened. Yeah. And I was just thinking to myself, like, maybe we finally grew up. And then once we realized that we all grew up and then we started like looking at each other and started seeing like the same thing, pointing at the same thing, we were like, well, like this is kind of like a connection as if we're twins or something.
Yeah, it was just the communication and the chemistry that you guys developed, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Scott Reynolds.
Hey, Jamel, Rick was talking about that big interception you had, and unfortunately, it was the only interception you had. It was a huge play against the Packers. Is that something you're trying to work on this offseason? Is not just breaking up passes, but coming down with those interceptions and getting those INT totals higher this year?
Most definitely. And then another thing I'm working on is like growing my IQ for the game, building on my knowledge from basically the past 2 years, just building my knowledge of the game. Because I feel like the more I know, the more I'll be able to put myself in better situation to make plays. Really, interceptions. Yeah, I can't go for PBUs because apparently PBUs don't get you all pro.
Thanks, Jamel.
The last question will come from Jenna Lane.
Hey, Jamel. You talked a little bit about last year, post bye week being the turning point. But what about you guys' postseason success as a secondary? What did that do for your group into this year?
I mean, like last year postseason, it really showed us what we were capable of doing. And then knowing that we know now that we know that we are able to do it, we just got to build off it and continue doing what we did postseason.